People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers your name. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. Alright, yeah.
I want to introduce the host of Strange Darkness Radio, Bobby Washington and Tony Carr.
Thanks for joining us tonight on Strange Darkness Radio. Hey, Tony, what's happening?
What's up, man? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. You know, another day.
Another day, bro. Another dark day, bro.
Exactly. Hey, so this is Strange Darkness Radio, episode 2. I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight on this voyage, and also I want to give you guys our social, so that way you can hit us up and always stay informed. Our Twitter is at SDR Radio, so it's SD Radio is our Twitter handle, and Tony, you got that IG?
Yes, man. It's Strange Darkness _radio.
Nice. And you can always hit us up on our Facebook fan page. Any information that we talk about on the show, we'll post it on our fan page so that way you guys know about the show information and also the show topics for the show. And for tonight's show, what we have for you guys are 2 incredible stories. One is the Giants of Kandahar. That's a very interesting story. We'll try to, decipher whether or not that is real or not. And then we also have the Black Eyed Kids. We go into the origins per se, because again, there have always been tales of the Black Eyed Kids. But on this particular one, this is the one that's the most popular, and that generated like the most information about the Black Eyed Kids. So we'll get into that also. So Tony, how's your week been, man, in the paranormal realm? Anything strange or crazy happened to you?
Yeah, man, my day's been good. Earlier today, a little bit of my dishes was rattling, like with the forks and spoons.
Yeah, okay.
And nothing was out of place. So it was kind of weird, and nothing was inside. Nothing was in
the rack. Was it on the rack, or was it in the dishwasher?
Rack. Nothing was in a drying rack.
Okay.
And everything was put away. So the little rattling kind of had me look over, like, what the hell was going on? But sometimes that does happen.
Yeah. Did you check and see if we had a little tremor, a little earthquake?
Yeah, we didn't have anything.
I do stuff like that, dude. When stuff happens in the house, next thing I know, I'm looking up on my phone, like, was there a tremor? Because one time there was. Like, I was doing something, and then we actually had an earthquake here in California, and I was like, damn, that was an actual earthquake. I felt
actually when I was living in LA, man, there's a lot of times that we'd be chilling, and as you know, you hear the bowls go like rattle like a couple of times, and then they would do it again, and then like the spoons and forks would start to do it. And so, but that house was kind of creepy though. So
interesting.
It was always something going on.
Yeah,
at that house.
Yeah, that's interesting. Right now I'm drinking some Strange Darkness tea, so you guys are gonna hear a little, clanking from time to time. So don't mind me. It's late night and we're just chilling and having a conversation, and that's what happens at night.
Yeah, man.
But also, Tony, let's tell them about we were doing show prep, and one night, and we had something crazy happen to where we were on Skype, and we're having a conversation about the show and about different details. And next thing you know, I'm hearing in your background, I'm hearing like a channel changing like constantly. I'm like, oh, okay, which is whatever, because again, we weren't recording or anything. And then your girl goes and proceeds to tell you what?
Oh, man. Because so earlier that day, I lost the remote, the Fire TV, the Fire Stick remote. And it's still lost to this day. I don't know where the hell I put it. But the remote's not in here. And the TV Well, okay, so we do have Fire Stick TV app because they have an app. So if you lose your remote, you can channel it through your app.
Mm-hmm.
But since I was doing this, I had closed the app out, and it was no way that the TV can be changing channels. But it was changing channels like somebody's pressing on like the fast forward button, and it was just going through all types of channels. And she was like, "What's going on?"
Yeah,
I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "My phone's right here. It's off, so I don't understand why it's going off." And then my computer started messing up, started glitching, and stuff. So that was kind of weird, and she was getting freaked out because I was like, there's no way that TV should be flipping through all those channels by itself, So I don't know if it was technical difficulties. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that the remote's not in the house. Last time I had the remote, it was in the car. I actually brought it with me when I was picking up my girlfriend, and the app was off.
Okay.
So I don't understand how, that started doing it. But some strange shit do be happening at this apartment from time to time. So
yeah. Okay. Interesting. Because after that incident, the next day, again, I was doing show prep. And so I have my iPad off to my left. I have this big giant Mac 27-inch screen. So I'm actually doing my notes on there, putting them over to my notes on my iPad. And I also have like a TV show playing. I have old school Gilligan's Island just sitting there playing, and got done with the show prep stuff, and went and left the studio. So as I leave the studio, a couple hours later, I hear, I hear something going off or something playing. I'm like, okay, that's weird. Like, I didn't leave anything on. Everything's shut down. Okay, so that's kind of odd. And then I'm still hearing this noise, right? So as I proceed to walk into the studio, Gilligan's Island is playing. Now, mind you, I have my iPad closed. So once you close the iPad screen, which I have a case on it, it actually just closes everything. And then you got to log back into it, put the code in, or do facial recognition. And then everything comes back up. And, I totally got out of the Gilligan's Island and everything else. Only thing that was up was my show notes. And again, to get into it, you have to actually press the password in or see your face, and then it comes up. So Gilligan's Island was playing by itself. I mean, this is the next day, just randomly. I'm like, and this has never happened. One, you have to open the cover up. Two, you have to enter the code to get into it, or facial recognition, right? And it was totally still closed up. I had to pick it up, flip it open, and I'm sitting here watching Gilligan's Island as it's playing from where I left off, which was a day prior. So that was creepy. I've never had that happen. The iPad's never done anything like that for sure. And so yeah, that to me, that was kind of creepy.
Yeah, I think the more you talk about stuff, the more it's possible that you challenge stuff to come, mess around with shit.
Oh, Snapple.
I wouldn't be surprised, bro, if like we're talking about, whatever type of story, exorcist story, OG boy story, and some shit start popping off, in our houses. And it's like, all that energy does go out, and you're bringing it towards us. So,
yeah, no, that's for sure, man. I'm starting to see that now.
Yeah, we're really early into this whole podcast shit, and it's already kind of starting to happen. So
exactly,
I'm just curious at how what's the crazy stuff going to happen later on, if it happens.
Yeah. Well, again, this whole show is dedicated to not just us telling our stories, but it's mainly for you guys to tell your stories. We want you guys to come on. We want you guys to tell your stories. We want you guys to be validated. Okay. We want, to be able to, fearlessly tell what happened, or whether it's an old story that your grandmother, your parents used to tell you, or something that's happened, to a loved one or a friend, and just come on and tell your story. So again, hit us up at 916-741-3032, and that's Strange Darkness Radio hotline. You're able to leave a message in 3-minute intervals. If you need to call back, definitely call back. if if you're apprehensive about messing up or whatever, you can call back as many times as you want to. We're not going to put something on air that you're unhappy with, or that sounds like you're scared and you're disheveled and you don't know what's going on. You're like, now they're going to just automatically play that. No. We'll take a beat, and we'll listen to it. And if we feel that you, kind of fumbled the ball and didn't call back, and, it's kind of not, you can't comprehend it, then we're not going to put it on, because we want, you to be, feel comfortable with what you're doing and what you're, the call that you're making. So you can call back as many times. Don't be scared.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure your story is more scarier than making a phone call. Again, you're just talking to the voicemail, and you're just telling a story just like we're talking, to you guys now. So
you don't have to be scared that the story doesn't make sense or is not believable. Not every story somebody's going to believe.
Oh, exactly. And but the thing about it is this: that same story could have happened to somebody else, to validate, what you've seen, or what your parents or what a loved one has said to you or told you. You know what I mean? A story that your dad told you he's not here anymore, and you always wondered, was it real or did it happen to him? And then somebody comes in and tells the same story, and you're like, man, that's wild. So you never know. Mm-hmm. So in speaking about that, we're going to go ahead and get into some calls that we've received. So let's go.
Caller, tell us your story.
If you're wondering if there's life after death, absolutely. So I used to be a hospice nurse, and I worked the night shift, 7 p to 7 a. That night I had a husband and a wife as patients. They were both in isolation rooms. Each one had their own room because each one had different infectious diseases. So I go in to check on the female, and I'm talking to her, and I notice her vitals are, going down. So I was talking to her, and she said, I'm in pain. I said, do you want me to give you something for pain? And she said, yes. And on my way out, she said, hey, thank you for everything that you're doing. And I said, no problem. So I go up to the nurse's station. I tell them, hey, you might want to contact the family because she's, declining. And they said also the husband, he's showing irregular heartbeats. And I said, okay. They were both DNRs, which means do not resuscitate. So if something happens to them, we have to let them pass. So I walk all the way back to the med cart. I'm getting her medication ready. All of a sudden, she's standing next to me. And I told her, what are you doing here, Mrs. So-and-so? And she says, I need for you to go check on my husband right now. And I said, okay, I'll do that. Let me medicate you first. She said, no, I need to see him, but I can't unless I'm with you. And I looked at her and I said, well, okay. So we go into his isolation room, and there's a little room that you go into before you go into the actual patient's room because you have to get, dressed medically. So we walked into the patient's room. And she's standing next to me the whole time, and I'm feeling like this electricity, and my skin is just, the hair is rising up, and, he looks at her and he goes, I'm so glad you came, honey. She said, grab my hand, and she said, come on, let's go. And I said, what do you mean, let's go? Where are you going? So he sits up. Next thing I know, they're grabbing hands. All of a sudden, he falls back into the bed, and I turn to look, and she's gone. And so then I get a knock on the door, and they're like, hey, he just passed, and also the wife just passed. And I'm sitting there going, okay. So I go back to the wife's room, and, she's expired. And I'm like, this is really, really bizarre. And I didn't say anything. So we decided that we were going to put them together so that when the family came in, they could say their proper goodbyes. So we put them together in the room. And as I'm doing that, I'm in there by myself. The female just shows up out of the blue, and at this point I already know that this is something paranormal. And she said, he won't come with me. And I'm like, what do you mean he won't come with you? And she's like, no, he won't come with me. At that point, the kids walk in and they start crying, and I'm backing up against the wall because, I don't want to get in the way. So then as I'm walking out of the room, the bathroom door starts to open, and I see the man standing there. And he's still wearing his hospital gown, and he looks out, through the door, and he says, okay, they're here. I can go now. And I hear the wife laughing in the background, and then the bathroom kind of lit up, and then they were gone. That just blew my mind.
Whoa. Man, that was crazy. Did you get that story? Did you understand it?
Man, I did. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know how to react to stuff like that, honestly.
Yeah.
Because there's been some stuff that happened to me, and when you go through it at first, bro, I wouldn't understand how to react.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I heard a lot of hospice stories and on people, going, to the light or to the next world or saying, strange things while it's happening and occurring. And that's the wildest story I've heard. Thanks for calling in
Man,
for that, because that was an incredible story. So the lady came to her, and then said, let's go into her husband's room, which, she's like, I can't go in there without you. I wonder, was she some kind of tether, opposed to her just walking into the room? And mind you, she's supposedly laying in the bed. That's wild. And then she's
already gone.
Yeah. And so, she goes in there to get the husband, and the husband didn't want to leave until his kids came. And then that's when, and for her to experience that, and then to keep her composure, wow, that's incredible.
It could be the feeling as well. If the feeling's not dark or doesn't feel bad, then, I guess you'd be more willing or open to kind of do what she asked. Yeah. And there's no telling if she's experienced stuff like that before, so she was kind of prepared or knew the possibilities of, something like that occurring. So, yeah. And a lot of those hospice places, man, there's weird stuff that happens there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't doubt, you got the security guards, probably have some stories about, seeing apparitions walk through the door or through the hallway, and it's like on the corner of your eye. You can't really tell, but it's there. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it. I remember being at, this is a little small story for you guys, one of my crazy stories. I was at a hospital, and I was waiting for the elevator. And at this particular hospital, it was a trauma center, and they had a lot of gurneys that were in the hall. And I was standing by the gurney. I wasn't leaning on it, but I was standing by the gurney, and I shifted my weight. And there was a little black nurse. She was like, baby, don't sit on that gurney or lean up against it, because you never know who's going to get up with you, because somebody died on that gurney. And I was like, oh, snap. And that scared the crap out of me. I was like, okay, I got to I gotta make sure I never, because when you're in a hospital, you're not even thinking about that, honestly, because if you've ever gone to the emergency for whatever reason and they put you on a gurney or on one of those beds, imagine how many people have passed away on that particular bed. And so I'm always mindful of that when I go to hospitals. I got a couple stories about some hospitals for sure. But let's go ahead and get into another call. All right. Hang on. Yeah, let's do it.
So this happened when I lived in Georgia. I was home alone one night. It was about 11 o'clock at night when I heard a knock at the door. Me always being overly cautious, I always ignore that, because who would show up at my house at 11 o'clock at night? But still, I was curious to see who it was. So I tiptoed over to the front door. As I get closer, I started to feel like this feeling of dread and just like something was off. I didn't say a word when I heard him say, "Hi ma'am, I'm here selling magazine subscriptions. Can you please let me in so we can talk about it?" Me thinking there's no way that he even heard me, I still don't respond, and I just kind of wait there waiting for him to leave. He knocks a second time and goes, "Please ma'am, it's only gonna take a minute of your time. Can you please let me in and let me borrow a corner of your table?" Still not responding. I'm like, what is wrong with this kid? Why is he out at this time? Then he knocked on the door a third time and goes, "Well, can I at least have a glass of water? I've been out here all day." No. I started walking slowly back to the couch, and I'm like, this kid will eventually get tired and leave. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's about. I'm not interested. I had a neighbor that was right across the hall from me, so I hear when he knocks on her door. She opens it, and he gives her the whole thing about the magazine subscription, if she can let him in, etc. All I heard is when she yelled, "Honey!" and then she slams the door. After that, I didn't see the kid anymore. He left. Didn't think anything much of it. I was just like, it's probably some kid, whatever. The next day, my neighbor knocks on my door at like 7 in the morning. I know who she is, so of course I answer for her. And she goes, did that kid go to your door last night? I tell her, yes. She was like, you didn't answer the door, did you? And I was like, of course not. She goes, when I opened the door and I looked at his face, his eyes were completely blacked out. Like even the white parts of his eyes were black. Gives me chills talking about it now. But yeah, them things are real. I had an experience. This is real.
Ooh, the black-eyed kid story. A story,
that's crazy.
A story I know well that we will be telling tonight. And we will have an in-depth, a telling of a, pretty much one of the most told black-eyed kid story that's out there. It's like kind of like what started it all for the most part. But yeah, we'll definitely get into that. So yeah, what'd you think about that, man?
Hey, what happens if we do let them in? Do they kill you?
There was an old couple. You guys can find the story out there if you look. The old couple actually let the kids in. It was late night, and they were old. It was around, I believe, 2 a.m., almost the witching hour. I believe it's at 3 a.m. Mm-hmm. And because the older couple, I think the older gentleman was more apprehensive about letting them in, but the wife was like, no, we need to help these kids. And they let them in. And one of the kids asked for water, and the older lady went to go grab them some water. And when she came back, her husband, I believe, had collapsed. And then she called 911, and he ended up becoming really ill and everything. And then later, I think a day or two later, she ends up in the hospital also. So yeah, you guys can find that story out there. It's a pretty well-known story also. But yeah, so it has technically happened to where people supposedly have let them in. But yeah, it's crazy, dude. Especially
just bad shit that happens if you let them in. It's almost like you let in a spirit, say, you got to come into my body.
Yeah.
Then you're possessed. And then you go down this whole rabbit hole. I could just imagine, then you let them in, you got like heart problems and shit,
Yeah.
You got all these health problems that you didn't have before.
Exactly. That's, yeah. You guys can look it up or whatever. Yeah. There's some wild stories, but also, we're going to get into a story that's, pretty wild. We talked about it. We played a commercial about it. You want to talk a little bit about it, Tony, or you want me to go into it? The Giants of Kandahar.
Giants of Kandahar, man. It's a government cover-up. Supposedly, it's a government cover-up. They're saying that it's not real, but there's Navy SEALs out there that say, look, we've seen it. We killed it. It's real. But who can believe the government? I can't. I know you can't. So they cover up so much shit. Just like 5 years ago, there was a green light coming out of the sky in LA. Mm-hmm. And I missed it. My girlfriend's dad saw it. And they were trying to say that, and it was the light wasn't moving. It was just like somebody shining a flashlight through the sky.
Okay.
And it was like a big ass green light. People was, taping it and filming it and shit. But they tried to cover up and said it was a military experiment or military, what they do?
Military exercise.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it doesn't make any sense because it wasn't moving anywhere. So it's kind of weird. And I also have a picture. It was another incident that happened in the sky. It looked like a flashlight, but it was white.
Yeah.
Didn't move. They tried saying that was a exercise as well. And I actually have the picture because my girlfriend's dad took the picture of it that day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. We need to post that if you can find it. But
I would not doubt that these giants are real.
Exactly. But I know people are saying, because there's always one out there, that green light was Green Lantern. They were calling Green Lantern. No, I'm just joking. I had to say that. I had to say that. It was the Green Lantern light, man, whatever. Too funny. You could have found the ring and been him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and get in to the Giants of Kandahar.
you were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay, and there's no villages around
nothing
for miles.
Right.
So it's very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. About 4 kilometers. We're hiking through the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we'd left, there was all kinds of what happened with an ambush. But that was even odd because at the point of ambush, you'd call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly, we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop-off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard. Everybody.
And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish, past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was
so
surreal.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire, and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. And he's still got him, and he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. Our weapons components were in force. We had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits, and is still moving. Dan was dead. Okay? And Why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. Mm-hmm. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big. We couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk. A corpse that's been around for a while.
Really foul.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell, but once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out that we had a very large, possible human creature. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
Wow. That was a interview that was done by Stephen Quell, speaking to a U.S. military soldier that was actually one of the soldiers that obviously was there in Afghanistan that supposedly took down this particular being. And again, hopefully you guys kind of were able to hear it or whatever. It's hard recording to kind of listen to based upon the quality of the audio. But it was a 13-foot tall, red-headed, 6-fingered hands and toes humanoid that was in the mountains of Afghanistan that supposedly already killed a whole military elite unit that was out there doing whatever. You know how the government rolls. Who knows what they were up to at that particular time?
And they did a lot of shady shit back then in Afghanistan too.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's really a detailed story, and whether or not it's true, that's for you guys to suss out. But at the end of the day, giants did walk the earth. I mean, if you go, to the Bible, as far as like Genesis chapter 6, verse 4, verse 2, they talk about the Nephilim that were large beings that were angels that made it with human women that created these giants. And supposedly that's one of the reasons why God flooded the earth or whatever, was to dispatch these giants, these creatures, whatever, that were created, that were taking over, the humans.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony.
No, yeah, that's absolutely right. And according to the Bible as well, there's a lot of sin going on in the world. So it's kind of like, let's just restart the world and, start over again in a way without having to return, as a lot of people know that God one day will return. That's also according to the Bible, if you believe it or not. These Nephilims, man, they're just pretty much hybrids, angel and humans that come out, 13 feet tall, looking weird and stuff. And you can't, and the redheads though. And what they say about redheads, redheads have no soul. I'm just playing.
Oh, dang. Again, we're losing listeners right off the top. He's just joking. Redheads. I know some of the nicest redheads out there. Anyways. But yeah, so again, that's a pretty wild story. But also, the government came out and they're like, oh, it's a hoax. The Department of Defense has no record of this incident occurring whatsoever. There was no elite military group in Afghanistan that was butchered or killed, nor did someone actually, a group of men fight some humanoid that was then later killed and captured by us. And obviously, it's the military. Do you believe it? Do you not believe it?
Can't really trust them.
Who knows? They say this LA
about UFOs.
Yeah, that's true. They say this L.A. Marzulio is a blogger and well-known filmmaker that is believed to have created this whole story. So that remains to be seen. Haven't found too much information on him, but anything is possible, man. That's crazy. It's a wild story.
Yeah, could it be real? Could it be fake? There's parts of the ocean that we never, went through. So who's to tell that there's not, mythical giant squids out there just as much as there is, giants or whatever other creature that's in a different country that you never go to in the mountains. Yeah, deep down in the cave. So,
and also, the core of the earth, the inter-earth. They say there's an actual whole nother.
I heard about
system. Environment, sun, and everything, whatever, in the core of the earth, whatever. We'll eventually get into stories like that also. But let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back.
Make sure you check us out on Podbean, our hosting site. You can find us also on iTunes and Spotify.
I want you guys to sit back and get ready for one of the most well-known Black-Eyed Kid stories. It's the story of Brian Bethel. This story originated from a 1996 posting written by Brian Bethel. At the time, he was a Texas reporter. He posted this story on a ghost-related mailing list. In this posting, he described an encounter that he had with 2 children in Abilene, Texas in 1996.
As so many things do, it all started out innocently. My internet service provider used to have offices in a shopping center before they moved to their lavish accommodations elsewhere. There was a drop box at the original location. The monthly bill was due, and thus, there but for the grace of the net, I went. It was close to 9:30 in the evening when I left. It's about a 10 or 15-minute drive to downtown Abilene from my relatively isolated apartment. There was a $1.50 movie theater right next to Camelot Communications' old location, and at the time, it was featuring the modern masterpiece known as Mortal Kombat. I drove around the theater and pulled into an empty parking space. Using the glow of the marquee to write out my check, I was startled to hear a knock on the driver's side window of my car. I looked over and saw 2 young boys staring at me from the street. Both appeared to be in that semi-mystical stage of life where you can't discern their age, but my initial impression was that they were somewhere between 10 or 14. Oh, great, I thought. They're going to hit me up for money. The boy on the left was the spokesman. The boy on the right didn't speak during the entire conversation, at least not in words. The boy on the left was slightly taller than his companion, wearing a hooded pullover with a sort of gray checker pattern and jeans. I couldn't see his shoes. His skin was olive-colored and he had curly brown hair. He exuded an air of quiet confidence. The boy on the right had pale skin with a trace of freckles. His primary characteristics seemed to be looking around nervously. He was dressed in a similar manner to his companion, but his pullover was a light green color. His hair seemed to be a pastel orange color. I did not get the impression that they were related. I was filling out a check in my car, which was still running, and suddenly I was overcome with panic. I was confused, but an overwhelming sense of fear and dread rushed in nonetheless. The spokesman smiled, and for some inexplicable reason, my blood ran ice cold. I could feel the fight-or-flight response kicking in. Instinctively, I knew something was not right, but I could not explain it. I rolled down the window just a crack and asked, "Yes?" The spokesman smiled again, broader this time. His teeth were almost too white.
"Hey, mister, what's up? We have a problem,"
he said. His voice was that of a young man, but his diction quite calm, and something I still couldn't put my finger on made my desire to flee even greater.
"You see, my friend and I want to see the films, but we forgot our money,"
he continued.
"We need to go to our house to get it. Want to help us out?"
His command of language was incredible for his perceived age, and he showed no signs of trepidation when speaking to an adult. He articulated as if my help was a foregone conclusion. When he grinned, it was as if he was trying to say, "I know something, and you're not going to like it, but the only way you're going to find out will be to do what I say." Well, was the best I could offer. The quiet companion looked at the kid on the left with a mixture of confusion and guilt on his face. He seemed to be shocked, not with his friend's brusque manner, but with the fact that I didn't immediately open the door. He eyed me nervously. The spokesman seemed a bit perturbed as well, and I was still registering something wrong with him.
"Come on, mister,"
the spokesman said again, smooth as silk. A car salesman couldn't have said it any better.
"Now, we just want to go to our house, and we're just 2 little boys."
That really scared me. Something in his tone and expression set off alarm bells once again. My mind was frantically trying to assess what was wrong with the two figures standing before me. Was all I could manage to utter. I saw that my fingernails were digging into the steering wheel. "What movie were you going to see?" I asked finally.
"Mortal Kombat, of course,"
the kid said. The silent one nodded in affirmation, standing a few paces behind. "Oh," I said. I stole a quick glance at the marquee and then at the clock in my car. The last showing of Mortal Kombat started over an hour ago. The silent one looked increasingly nervous. I think he followed my gaze and suspected that I might be detecting something was not above board.
"Come on, mister. Let us in. We can't get in your car until you do, you know,"
the spokesman said soothingly.
"Just let us in, and we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house."
We locked eyes. To my horror, I realized my hand had strayed toward the door lock, which was engaged, and was in the process of opening it. I pulled it away, probably a bit too violently, but it did force me to look away from the children. I turned back. I offered weakly, and then my mind snapped into sharp focus. For the first time, I noticed their eyes. They were coal black, no pupil, no iris, just two staring orbs reflecting the red and white light of the marquee. At that point, I know my expression betrayed me. The silent one had a look of horror on his face in a combination that seemed to indicate A, the impossible had just happened, and B, we've been found out. The spokesman, on the other hand, wore a mask of anger. His eyes glittered brightly in the half-light.
"Come on, mister," he said. "We won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun."
That last statement scared the living hell out of me, because at that point, by his tone, he was plainly saying, "We don't need a gun." He noticed my hand shooting down toward the shift gear. The spokesman's final words contained an anger that was complete and whole, and yet contained in some respects a tone of panic.
"We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in."
I ripped the car into reverse. Thank goodness no one was coming up behind me, and tore out of the parking lot. I noticed the boys in my peripheral vision, and I stole a quick glance back. They were gone. The sidewalk by the theater was deserted. I drove home in a heightened state of panic. Had anyone attempted to stop me, I would have run on through and faced the consequences later. I bolted into my house, scanning all around, including the sky. What did I see? Maybe nothing more than some kids looking for a ride, and some really funky contacts. Yeah, right.
Strange Darkness Radio. Strange definition. Unusual or surprising in a way that is unsettling or hard to understand. I can only show you the door, but you have to step through.
That was an amazing story. An amazing story. Because something similar happened to me. You know, that was one of the first true stories that grabbed me as far as like black-eyed kids. You know, that's, you know, being that, you know, small children, black eyes, you know, that's just so creepy, right? And, you know, again, from that moment, there's always been a hint of demonic children or, you know, kids, whatever, being possessed, you know, since the beginning of time for the most part, or since stories have been told. But the way he told the story and what actually happened to him, you know, it was never told like that, about the kids wanting to come in and wanting to actually, gain entry, but you have to give them permission, kind of like vampires, to where you have to welcome them in. They just can't force their way in or, make you do it. So that is a trip. But I have an incredible story that I don't know how much it's related to this scenario, in the sense of it was just weird, odd, crazy. I was terrified. I was creeped out. I had the overwhelming, fear of dread, that came over me in this particular story that I'm going to tell you. But the one thing about this story about Brian Bethel, this story has been told a lot. Okay. It's been narrated, as you just heard, which was done very well. And it's been, posted every place, on Reddit, YouTube videos, you name it, it's out there, right? Because it's one of the major, stories that came across, about black-eyed kids. And when you look it up, it's one of the first stories that pop up. It has its own wiki page and everything, right? But the one thing that people get wrong, and even as you heard in the narration or did not hear, is the when the eyes become black. Okay. And Brian Bethel has a book that he wrote about it. Again, there's a in-depth Wikipedia page. The one thing that people get wrong, and I didn't even realize it until all this time, in me doing my research on this topic for the show, is that what he actually states. He says, in his encounter with the incident, he stated that when he broke eye contact, he became overwhelmed with just fear. It was just all encompassing, right? And it wasn't until he broke eye contact that their eyes became completely black. So as he was talking to these kids, their eyes were perfectly normal, and then at some point, they turned all black, everything. So when we come back, I'm going to definitely get into, my story. All right. We'll be back.
Make sure you check us out on Podbean, our hosting site. You can find us also on iTunes and Spotify.
Okay, I want you to tell me if this is black-eyed kids related. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story, and everything that I'm telling you is true to the point, because it was just so odd and crazy that I remember it like the back of my hand. I remember it like it was yesterday. Every time I tell the story, it's just incredible. So let's get into it. Okay. So I lived in this particular area. It was an older area as far as a lot of retired people. Okay. I had this neighbor who was a retired gentleman. He was always watching other people's houses and everything, as far as, in a good way, not in a creepy way, as far as just looking out for strange people, different scenarios that would happen throughout the neighborhood. He was always on top of it and could tell you everything about it, right? So one day I was at work. I get a phone call, and his name, I'm not going to give his name, actually. I was going to, but I'm not going to. But because he's since passed, and he was a very special person. But he said, hey, Bob, when you get home, come over. I need to talk to you. And I said, okay, when I get off work. I said, okay, fine. So I got off work. I went across the street, talked to him. I was like, hey, what's up? He was like, I don't really want to get into your personal business, but you don't have any debtors or collectors or somebody trying to repossess a car or anything like that? I'm like, no. What's going on? He said, well, I was sitting on my couch and I heard this loud booming noise. And then I looked over and someone was just bamming on your door just with all their might, just boom, 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 boom. Right? And I was like, okay, did they say anything? Did they leave? Did you do anything? Like, what happened, right? So he says, well, no, I watched them. You know, on my particular door, I had a little window that you can actually open and talk to people. It's like a metal cage. And when you hit it or hit the door hard, it kind of reverberates in the door because it's like a metal casing, right? So when he was hitting it extremely hard, it echoed, you know, throughout the neighborhood. And that's what caught his attention. So he watches this guy. It's a white gentleman. He's in a full suit. Okay. So it's not like, you know, just some random person in the sense of, you know, whether it's a person handing out something or a person trying to break into the house or whatever. This guy was in a full nice suit, he said. So the guy goes to the side of my fence. He jumps the fence. So my neighbor picks up the phone, ready to call 911. And no more than, I don't know, 30 seconds or 45 seconds, he comes from the other side. And then he proceeds to walk away. And so he says, you know, to himself, that's odd. You know, let me call Bobby and see what's going on and, you know, have him come over and talk to him. I was like, okay. So he tells me the story. And then I say, well, you know what? That was strange. I don't know why a person would do that. You know, just because he had a suit doesn't mean he's not a robber. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, you know what? Let me stay home the next day. And just in case the guy comes back or something's up, I'm going to stay home. So I stay home from work. Okay, I'm in the living room. Everybody leaves the house. I'm at the computer playing, I think, World of Warcraft, like 8 o'clock in the morning. So I'm doing this, right? My computer is right by the door. Right by the door. So at around 8:05, there is a loud, I mean, it scared the crap out of me. Boom, 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 boom on the door. And instead of taking a beat and looking out the window or using the little window on the door to open it up and to look at what was going on or who the person was, I snatched the door open because I was pissed. Because one, it scared the shit out of me. And two, I'm like, who the hell would knock on the door? And the funny thing about it, I forgot all about, not why I stayed home, but, you know, just the story in general about the guy. You know, like, well, you know, you can obviously expect someone to bam on your door because it happened yesterday. Didn't even think about that. And it was so violent to where I just snatched the door open because I was so pissed. I was like, what the hell are you doing knocking on my door like that? Right. And, there's this guy standing in front of me. He's on my step. Like he's no more than, I don't know, 3 feet from me because I just snatched the door open and I was pissed. And this guy, he was probably anywhere between 16 to 18 years old. His face is all like pock-marked up, like he was digging in his skin. His teeth were all rotten. I mean, rotten to the core. Like you just saw like the nastiest yellow color with the brownest, blackest, you know, teeth, and they were all jagged and rotted. It was the craziest thing. This guy had like a hoodie on. And I'm like, you know, why did you hit my door like that? What are you doing? Like, what, you know, what's going on? You know, right? And you know, I'm dropping some expletives and all that good stuff. And then he's like, calmly, Johnny told me to come. You know, I'm like, what? You know, I'm like, what are you talking about? Excuse me, was not Johnny. Joey told me to come. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm supposed to meet Joey here. Joey told me to come. I'm like, dude, there is no Joey that lives at this house. Leave, get off my property, walk away. No, Joey told me to meet him here. I'm supposed to meet Joey here. Let me in. I'm supposed to meet Joey. I'm like, dude, there is no Joey that lives here. What part of that don't you understand, right? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? There is no Joey that lives here. This dude was probably 90 pounds, right? He was focused. He did not miss a beat. He was calm. Now, mind you, I'm not calm. I'm actually in a state of rage, trying to be somewhat controlled rage because I'm still pissed. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is the craziest thing, right? And he's calm, kept repeating, I'm here. Joey told me to be here. I was like, dude, there is no Joey that lives here. Period. Get off my property. Leave now. Now, mind you, this area is all right. It's a nice area, right? Older area. This kid is a white kid. I'm a black man. And, kind of big. Can handle myself. Look like I can handle myself anyways. And, this guy's not flinching. He's not even thinking about moving, right? And there's another guy that's on a bike. He's facing the street. He's facing the road to the left. So he's looking at that road. I'm looking at him sideways. He never looks at me whatsoever as I'm trying to watch this guy and watch him at the same time. He looks older because he looks a little bit more fit or heavier. Can't see his face. So, again, I'm trying to get this guy to back off of my area based upon he's kind of close, which again, I should have never just snatched the door open, but I was so freaking pissed. Right. And, the guy on the bike is like, just not moving whatsoever, not turning, not looking. I'm going off. This dude's repeating the same thing. Joey told me to meet him here. I'm here for Joey. Let me in. All this. He's just repeating the same thing, same mantra, right? So the guy on the bike, I said, "Hey, you look at me. Look at me. Turn your head this way." Cause I'm trying to get descriptions and everything, right? Like, what the hell is happening here? Not even thinking this guy can lunge at me with a weapon or anything like. I was so pissed. It was the stupidest thing I've ever done, right? As far as not being prepared for something like that. And he doesn't look at all. But you want to know what he did? He says this.
What the fuck is your problem?
He says it that fucking deep, right? I'm like, what the hell? Crazy, right? He says,
all you have is a sword.
Dude, it took me no less than a half of a millisecond to slam the goddamn door, grab the phone, and call 911. Do you know why I did that? Because I didn't have a firearm. All I have is a samurai sword that I keep under my mattress that nobody knows about other than my wife, period. And so here's the funny thing. The samurai sword was not in view of anything. It was way off to the side. There is no way in hell that this dude knew that I had a samurai sword. Period. I'm her brother, right? You know, most people think, oh, you know, come on, African Americans, they got, you know, weapons and blah, 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 so on and so forth. No, I had a fucking samurai sword. Crazy. So he says,
what are you going to do with that?
And like I said, I shut the door extremely fast. My brain I don't think I've ever processed information that fucking quick. I shut the door, grabbed my wireless phone at the time. This is back in the day. Grabbed my wireless phone, started calling 911, snatched the door back open, right? Ran out of the house, talking to the 911 operator, looking to my right, which was way down the street. I'm at the end of the street is where my house is. Saw that they were not going that way, went the opposite way, which is on the corner. As soon as I hit the corner, there was nobody. There was absolutely nobody. I'm explaining to the 911 operator what's going on. I'm hoping the call doesn't drop because I probably did the longest, you know, however long that wireless phone before it dropped, which it did not drop, which was probably, I don't know, I think it probably took it 150 feet or whatever else. I stretched the limits of that wireless connection. And the police were probably there within about maybe 5 minutes. Police car pulls up. I'm explaining to him what's going on. They're okay. Like, they're saying, okay, we have another unit in the area. We're going to, you know, look for these guys, blah, blah, blah. They come back 10 minutes later. Now it's probably about 15 minutes later. Nothing. No kids on a bike, no adults on a bike, nothing at all. They're like, you know, do you know the description? Can you tell me, you know, go into more detail, which I did. Couldn't give them the description of the guy on the bike because he never turned my way. But I gave them the description of the guy in front of me. It was the craziest thing. Now, I never related that story really to black-eyed kids. And the reason why I didn't, because most stories about the black-eyed kids, what they say is their sclera, their whole eye is black, like from the get, and the person's not paying attention, and then eventually they have a hoodie on and they somehow make eye contact and they see like, ooh, their eyes are all black. But what, like I was saying with the story with Brian Bethel, he actually says this happens in the middle of the conversation. So at this point, there was no middle of the conversation. It lasted how long it lasted. But the second dude said that's when I went into freaking panic mode, because I was like, how the hell does he know that? You know, and then, you know, you can, you know, some people were saying, well, maybe the one guy that came earlier, the prior day was casing your house and he was able to get into the house. No, there was no entry into the house. Nothing was broken into. He didn't have enough time to do any of that, and let alone he wouldn't have found the samurai sword, and let alone I'm a techie and a musician, a bunch of expensive equipment. Nothing was out of place, nothing was gone, nothing was taken, everything was fine, you know, period. So that is my possible black-eyed story.
There is a fifth dimension beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
You can listen to Strange Darkness Radio on iTunes or Spotify or any of your podcast hosting sites.
Yeah, so that's my story, man, when it comes to whether or not it was the black-eyed kids or just some crazy meth heads. Either way, it was crazy.
That's crazy, bro. I would have lost my shit. One, when the guy talked to me in a deep ass voice, but not even turning towards me, bro. I would have lost it.
Yeah. It was wild, dude. I mean, at that point when he spoke, man, the hairs on my arm stood up, and because I was like, does he have like a deep ass demonic voice? I'm like, what the hell? And again, he wasn't even facing me. So for his voice to carry and be that deep, and he's facing a totally different direction, he's probably maybe 10 to 15 feet away from me. Because again, the other guy is on my stoop, whatever, and he was really more like probably 2 feet in front of me. But the other guy, he was on the sidewalk. And man, it was wild. It was wild. I was like, when he said that, and then the whole thing is, I took the samurai sword out for, I was like, okay, I need to have a weapon just in case somebody comes, to the house or whatever. Only the weapon I had was a samurai sword, right? And so I put it like by the sofa, which again, you cannot see it from the door whatsoever, let alone the guy on the sidewalk couldn't see it. And again, he never even looked, my way. Cause the whole time I'm watching this guy, then watching him also. And, like it was like crazy. Like, what the hell is happening right now? So when that combination of things, his voice being extremely deep, him, saying all you have is a samurai sword, and what are you going to do with that? And, like that's irrelevant. Like it's nothing. Yeah. And then he knew what I had. Man, my brain was like, stop, close the door, call, not grab the sword and get, ready for battle. It was more like, okay, let me get the authorities out here because it's about to go down. I didn't know what was taking place.
Yeah, and do black-eyed kids usually come in pairs? Or is it just one, or sometimes they're pairs?
They're mostly heard about in pairs, which is odd. It's rare that it'll be just one black-eyed kid, but they usually come in pairs, and they're adamant about coming in. They're adamant that you have to let them in, and they'll give the weirdest reasons. Like the one lady was saying that he wanted part of her table, which was just weird. The dialogue is weird. And again, the guy just kept repeating, Joey, told me to come here and, to let me in. And, I'm like, what is happening? You know what I'm saying? It was just crazy, man. It was crazy. But
that's insane, bro. I don't know how I would act in person let alone see a ghost, bro, but see a person in front of me talking crazy like that.
Yeah.
You got to whoop their ass real quick if you can't touch them. And if you can't, then you can't. But it's like they tag team. It's like if one, with your story, one guy was telling, Joy he's meeting up with Joy. Other one is like, you know what? The deep voice, I'm going to take care of this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Listening to what the hell I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wild. It was wild, man. But yeah, like I said, I don't know if it was a black-eyed kid story, but just the whole asking to be let in, and the smell too. The smell was like sulfur, had a sulfur smell in the air, which was weird because it was just a lingering stench, even running out and everything. Like I said, it was crazy. It was crazy. But again, that is my black-eyed. What's that?
It's probably a demon type of situation.
Yeah.
A demon manifestation. Is that what it's called?
Manifestation?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just hope you weren't saying master and we won't say the rest. But hey, that was my story. I want to hear you guys' story. I want you guys to make sure you call in, and let, your story be told and everything else. You guys sitting here listening to my stories. I want to hear your stories. Again, you can call the Strange Darkness Radio hotline at 916-741-3032. Again, that's 916-741-3032. 3032. And it's on all our social, at the SD Radio, our Twitter. You can catch it there. Go ahead and subscribe on there. Also, we're always hitting you guys up with strange stories and, UFOs and strange facts and all that stuff. You can also hit us up on our IG at Strange Darkness _radio and Facebook fan page at Strange Darkness Radio. And go ahead and on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all the above. Go ahead and subscribe. Tell a friend. Subscribe. Come on, tell your story. For some reason, I've been having an issue getting the Android situation handled. So hopefully, going into show 2, I can get that hammered out and see what's going on with that. Just the Android podcast app. Need to have a handshake with Podbean, because you can also check us out on Podbean. That's actually our hosting site. Gives our show description. All the feed comes from that. So you can definitely, check it out there. Tony, any parting words?
Also, please leave a review.
Yes.
Let us know how we're doing. If you guys don't like it, tell us why you don't like it, and we will try to accommodate you and change it up. But yeah, always leave a review, and please subscribe to this channel.
Yeah, definitely. Strange Darkness Radio. Let's go ahead and have Buzz and the presidents take us out, because they really know what's going on.
I am Buzz Aldrin, and I was the lunar module pilot on Apollo 11.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
The truth is that we've never proved one, but there are things flying around up there that we haven't fully identified yet. And keep in mind, there are basically 1 billion galaxies in an ever-expanding universe. I mean, you can't even get your mind around the sheer number of things that are out there.
People still take seriously trying to investigate and figure out what that is. There's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are. We can't explain how they moved, their trajectory. They did not have an easily explainable pattern. When it comes to aliens, there's some things I just can't tell you.